And we're back. Oh, well, I'm back. What's up, guys? This is another edition of Armchair GMs brought to you by Blitz and Kick Podcast. I am your host for today, Bugman J. How you guys doing on this glorious Tuesday? It's waiver wire Tuesday for some, most. If you're in ESPN leagues, Yahoo leagues, your waiver will kick in tomorrow. So let me see if I cannot try to give you guys a little help to boost your stats to get you guys through to the victory, But anywho, my buddy is out this week. My co-host is out this week, and we want to wish him, my buddy Matt, a swift recovery. He is sick and cannot be here today, so I'm stepping in. We've been on a little hiatus. Kid schedules have kind of got us mixed up, but we are hoping to become more consistent as the weeks go along, and try to get you guys more content, more info on that will be coming at a later date. But as of right now, it's been a good week in football. A lot of surprises, a lot of things that kind of didn't go the way some would hope, and other surprise players had very, very good days. Talk about it in a little bit. But first and foremost, want to try to pay some bills. So you guys sit back and check out our ads, and I'll be back in a bit.
Fresh Cuts is our amazing sponsor who has been with us since 2020. Fresh Cuts is the local barbershop hangout in Marion, Indiana. If you're looking for a full-service barber with excellent cuts and a welcoming atmosphere, contact Caleb Kemper for an appointment time through www.freshcutsbarbershop.com. Mondays are the best days to get in, although he has plenty of time slots available. And if you happen to miss us live, you'll be hearing us in the shop while you enjoy your fresh cut. Slide on by to Fresh Cuts to pick up some stylish footwear with Caleb's Fresh Kicks collection. From Nike to Jordans, he offers the best price for quality kicks. And if you don't find what you like, Caleb offers custom work for $250. Stop over to 1224 North Baldwin Ave in Marion to pick up yours today, or Caleb also ships all over the U.S. Message him for prices and sizes. Our other people we sponsor, Steve Wood Illustrations and Ronald Morell for Mayor, check out their respective pages on Facebook. And our other friends at other podcasts, the Culture Corner podcast, 1,000 Wives of Weird, and Rules of the Frame. Check them out on their respective platforms listed below.
And we are back. So let's get into a little bit of injury news and notes. There have been a couple of big updates today. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can. If I miss anything, please leave a comment, chat. If you guys watch this on replay, just leave us a review on Spotify. If you watch us on YouTube, or if you catch us on Facebook, leave us a comment, let us know. We're going to get started. The biggest news, I think, so far this week is that head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, Jonathan Gannon, says that Kyler Murray will start for the Cardinals on Sunday if everything goes well in practice this week. As far as I know, he practiced in full all week last week and still didn't start. So they were probably trying to get him back in, acclimated with the team, see how he's feeling, see how he's doing. Obviously, he's doing pretty well coming back off of a knee injury. So it'll be his first start against my Atlanta Falcons, who I want to rant about so bad, but we're just going to leave that out of the podcast because that team is probably something I don't want to talk about much. Anyway, but having Kyler Murray back out there, K1, as some call him, versus the Falcons, it's going to be a pretty good game. See him come back, shake the rust off a bit, and we'll get to see what he's like for the future, and especially Arizona. I think he's worthy of a fantasy start because even though he may not run, so it'll be his floor may be limited, but he does have a good ceiling once he gets his wind up under him. And I hate to say it, but the Falcons defense is a very good defense to play if you want to try to do that, because their defense is known to give things away, i.e. everything we've seen over the last 2 weeks for them. See, I snuck in a little bit of the rant, just a little bit. But I'm done. I'm done. All right. Moving on. Kyler Murray. More Kyler Murray. All right. Daniel Jones tears his ACL, so he's probably most likely out for the year. So probably have to make plans if Daniel Jones is your starting quarterback. I'm sorry I said that with a little bit of a chuckle, but if he is, especially in a lot of deeper leagues, you may need to look for a replacement, or you definitely will need to look for a replacement if you don't already have one. The Bears have designated running back Khalil Herbert for return from injury reserve, along with their quarterback, Equanimeous St. Brown. I probably said his first name wrong. That's pretty big. They'll give them a little bit of stability in their backfield. I would probably assume that they're not going to be the team is not going to be that amped to give him back a full workload off of the jump. So he's probably only a flex at best right now. But once he gets his feet back under him as well, he should be able to produce at a high level. So I see that he should get a pretty decent workload maybe 2-3 weeks from now. Anyway, moving forward, Packers wide receiver Christian Watson was not diagnosed with a concussion, and his back and chest injuries do not appear overly severe. So that means if he's your wide receiver 2 or 3, you need to probably make arrangements, because he's probably going to take a downtick dealing with back and chest injuries. But if they're not overly serious, you can just play it by ear. But if you start to notice a dip, you may want to try to find a replacement. Moving to the Bengals, Coach Zach Taylor says that they will take the back injury for wide receiver Jamar Chase day to day, but noted that he's pretty sore. It's only Tuesday. Yeah, but the practice for next season really jumps into high gear usually on Wednesday. Unless you're playing a Thursday night game, then every day is pretty much a walkthrough. But so we need to pay attention to his injury designation going on into later in the week. To be more exact, Friday. Friday would be the day that we would most likely know our answer about whether or not Jamar Chase would be a go. Because if he doesn't practice walkthroughs today, if he doesn't practice tomorrow, and he's not a participant in practice on Thursday, and he's probably not going to be a participant on Friday, that means he's probably not going to play. You got to see some kind of activity, some kind of participation, whether it's limited or, full, but probably not going to be with the day-to-day back injury. But we need to at least see him in practice limited in some capacity before Friday. Because if he's not doing anything by Friday, he's probably not going to play, and we're probably going to have to make arrangements. That probably would give a boost to T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. But they are probably most likely sewed up at this time. Dolphins rookie running back Devon Achane could possibly return from his injury on Week 11 against the Raiders after Miami's bye. No setbacks, Mike McDaniels. Quote. That will definitely be a boost if he gets back in some capacity. Raheem Mostert has been going off so far, but having that double duo and that pass-catching speedster is definitely an asset for their team. Aaron Rodgers is apparently getting closer and closer to returning. He has been riding a cart in the stadium to the Jets games this season. Now he's walking. Yeah, that was a big thing on X all day, and probably ever since it happened when he's walking to a game, the Jets and Eagles. He's walking now. So with that being said, it's probably more likely that he's going to be trying to itch back and get a return. And that will be a pleasant sight. But it would be miraculous for him to go have an Achilles injury and to be back so fast. That's a good turnaround. But moving forward, Colts are working out former 4th overall pick, Sammy Watkins. I don't know if that's any fantasy relevance, maybe in deeper leagues, but he hasn't really played at a high level in a few years, maybe since his days with the Rams. And he's had 3 teams after that. So I don't know how much value that brings. Maybe in deeper leagues, you might want to take a stab in the dark at somebody who could possibly bring some spark, but maybe not. All right. I think that may be it for the fantasy news and injury news and notes. All right. We're going to go to Dr. Joke, my hits and misses this week. Forgive me if I talk or speed through this a bit. We're going to start with quarterbacks, obviously. It was a big night for 2 quarterbacks, and both of them I'm going to put on this list as my jocks of the week for quarterback, and that'd be CJ Stroud and Joshua Dobbs. Both of these quarterbacks have never been in the top 10, much less the top 25 in fantasy. So to have these guys, CJ Stroud to be number 1 with 30 completions on 42 attempts, a 71.4% passer rating, 470 yards, 5 touchdowns, and he had 10 rushing yards for a grand total of 41.8 fantasy points, 76.5% roster. And then we go to Joshua Dobbs, who mind you, wasn't the starting quarterback for the game. Came in after an injury to their starter, and he went off. Had a very moderately consistent game, and it was enough to land him QB5 this week. And 20 for 30, 66.7 completion percentage, 158 yards. 158 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7 rushing attempts for 66 yards. He manages the game pretty well and efficiently. Mind you, they did have a few turnovers, but he was able to still rise above and do exactly what you expect your starting quarterback to do, rise above and execute. And I surely wish that Atlanta would have made that choice, but I digress. He had a very awesome game. Honorable mention also to Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts, who respectively had 28.4 and 25.9 fantasy points. To Dak Prescott was QB2 and Jalen Hurts was QB3. And now we're going to go to the jokes. There could be a lot I could put on this list, but there was a lot of middling round when it came to being you were either good or you weren't good. So I can give you this Bugman stat right here. Out of the top 10, which is CJ Stroud, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Joshua Dobbs, Joe Burrow, Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, Tyler Baggett, and ends with Sam Howell. All right. Out of those 10, only 6 of them scored more than 22 fantasy points. Everybody else in the top 10, and that goes from Deshaun Watson, Baker, Tyson, and Howell, they scored less than 20 fantasy points. They scored 19, 2 scored 19, 18, and 2 scored 18.7. So it's 6 out of 10. So it's 6 of them scored more than 20, but 22. And it's not the usual suspects. Patrick Mahomes is not there. He's number 12. with 15.8, and he's one of the jokes of the week. And the other super uber efficient, Tua Tagovailoa, 12.4 fantasy points. He's not neither one of these two quarterbacks are performing up to their ADP in any sense of the form. In any form. The number one quarterback and the number two quarterback off the board are both playing subpar fantasy football or in real life football. And it's hurting fantasy teams all around who are expecting 20, 25 points from either one of these two, but yet you can't even make 25 between the two of them, seems like. So those are my jokes and jokes for quarterback. Now, my jocks at running back also are some of the guys we expected to be there, but there were some real athletes out there. And Rachaad White, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, was really the beneficiary of exposure. Just feed him. He had 20 rushing attempts for 73 yards. It was only 3.7 yards per carry, long team, but he scored 2 touchdowns and 4 receptions for 46 yards, which gave him a grand total of 27.9 fantasy points. Now, that is how you just are clean across the board. Decent running with pass catching out of the backfield. You become a 3-down back and you get the exposure like that, and you're able to profit from it. Next would be Ramondre Stevenson, 9 rushing attempts for 87 yards, 4 20-plus rushes, along with 64, and a touchdown, 4 receptions on 6 targets for 42 yards. Give him a grand total of 22.9 fantasy points. Again, may not have gotten the lion's share of the carries, but effectiveness. 9.7 yards per carry. That's a lot. That's almost a first down. That's basically a first down every time he ran the ball. And if you can get that on a more consistent basis, that would be something great. Now, honorable mention also to Josh Jacobs and Austin Eckler. Josh Jacobs, 21.8. Austin Eckler, 21 on the head. All right, now to the jokes of the week. There are a few, but the more pressing one on my mind right now is Bijan Robinson, because at where his ADP was at, I figured we'd see more good games from him, but I feel like we're yet to see a top 10 from him. We're yet to see consistency, but there is just no consistency in the offense. And it's just lackluster when you're steadily being outperformed by Tyler Algier. Granted, Tyler Algier in himself is a very capable running back. He had 1,000 yards rushing as a rookie. Yeah, he's a very good running back, but he's not Bijan. And in offense with all of these star players, this team looks like it's a team that's just bridging the gap. And he's not being involved in the offense, and it shows. And another one is Tony Pollard, who is 27th, RB27 this week with 9.3 fantasy points. Just not effective. It's just not effective. Just ineffective when running the ball, not being able to make a man miss. He had 3 receptions for 12 yards, 4 yards per reception. Escapability is a quality that you have to exhibit to be able to be a receiving running back. You have to be able to make players miss because you're catching majority of your passes out of the backfield. And neither one of these guys are performing or doing the things that I need them to do, or any fantasy owner would need them to do. And that's why they are my jokes of the week. All right, moving on to wide receiver. Let's speed this up a little bit. All right, top two would be, now there are two players from Houston in the top three in PPR leagues, and they would be Tank Dell of the Houston Texans and Noah Brown of the Houston Texans. Noah Brown was 6 for 6, perfect on the day, for 153 yards, 25.5 yards per reception, a long of 75, and a touchdown for a grand total of 27.3 fantasy points. And Tank Dell, 6 for 11, 114, 2 touchdowns, two rushing attempts for 2 yards, or a grand total of 29.6 fantasy points. Now, that was all a part of CJ Stroud's 470-yard game, and now you can really see where a bulk of that went. But I digress. CeeDee Lamb also had a very good game, 11 for 16. Ooh, that is awesome. 11 for 16, 191, 17.4 rushing yards. No touchdowns, though, for a grand total of 28.1 fantasy points. Honorable mentions are going to go to Amari Cooper and Stephon Diggs, who are 4 and 5, 24.9, 22.6. All right. Jokes of the week. Now, usually when we go for this, these are the players that underperform based on their ADP. And even though he had a good game, I'm going to pick on Tyreek Hill. It's been kind of down. Been a couple underperforming weeks. And I just have to highlight that he had 8 catches on 10 targets for 62 yards, not 162, just 62, 7.8 yards per reception. That is lackluster. And the next one, I'm going to dig a little bit for this one because there's Terry McLaurin, 5 receptions on 7 targets for 73 yards, 12.3. Being the number one on offense with a quarterback that has your number after having a couple of good weeks, I just see it's a little bit of underperforming. It may be a stretch a little bit to pick on these two, but they are heavily played in their leagues, and they depend on these points. And when you can't perform up to your level, maybe it's just a slump, but just be mindful. All right, moving forward. Tight ends. All right. Top one of the day, obviously would be a part of the Houston offense. Number one tight end in fantasy in week 9 was Dalton Schultz, 10 for 11, 130 yards, and a touchdown for a grand total of 27 fantasy points, 75.8% rostered. And number 2 would be Jonnu Smith, 5 receptions on 6 targets for 100 yards and a touchdown for a grand total of 21 fantasy points, 27.6% rostered. Honorable mention would also go to Cade Otton of Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 6 receptions on 9 targets for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns, 6.9% roster. So definitely a waiver wire pickup that you should be looking for in your leagues is Cade Otton. He may not get this much consistency, but he is a red zone target, and a very useful one, very adequate one, I should say. So I believe those two are the ones. Honorable mention would go out to Jake Ferguson, 7 of the Dallas Cowboys, 7 of 10, 91 yards and a touchdown, grand total 22.1 fantasy points. And Taysom Hill, 20.6 fantasy points. And on the flip side, we're going to go with Kyle Pitts. 4 receptions on 5 targets, 56 yards, no touchdowns, grand total 9.6 fantasy points, 91.8% rostered. Looks like he should have a lot more going on as far as his ADP, but it's not really working out that way, and it definitely needs to change. This offense needs to fix a lot of things. And Dallas Goedert, 3 for 5 for 50 yards, no touchdowns, grand total 8 fantasy points, 96.9% rostered. The higher percentage you're rostered, the higher your ADP usually is. And this is another high ADP tight end that is really not living up to expectations. So that really needs to change, definitely. And that is my jocks and jokes of the week. All right. And we're going to shift gears a bit to our waiver wire. All right. You've heard a few names. I'm going to go back over them again. We have we're looking. I don't know how much you want to believe at quarterback. I don't know how much you want to believe in Tyson Baggett. He is on borrowed time. He did have a decent week last week. He was QB9, but he may be on the out. So we're going to go with Tyler Heineke. He's getting another start, especially in deeper leagues. He was QB 13 for all it's worth. Did have 268 passing yards. But his completion percentage was 55.3. So you might want to be kind of wary of that, especially. But Arizona's probably a bounce back team, but you can't sleep on them. All right. Moving along. Tommy DeVito. He may get the start this week. If that will be the case, then he would be a pickup in the deeper leagues. Will Levis, he has officially been named the starter, and he's 44.4% rostered. So you might want to take a stab at him. And last but not least, Aiden O'Connell, deeper leagues, 3.6% rostered. And moving on to running back, this may be a little bit more of slim pickings here. In deeper leagues as a flex option, the return of Antonio Gibson, the Washington Commanders. It was RB17, worthy of a flex position, 12.6 fantasy points, and he is 42.7% rostered. I'm going to bring him back up. Tyler Algier, he may be 50% rostered or 50% rostered, but he is taking, as you can see, he is taking the lion's share of the rushing so far, and it got him to RB20. He got 11 fantasy points last week, so he's definitely flex worthy as well. And that might be it for that. Let's go to wide receiver. Obviously, Noah Brown. He may not see this much volume or consistently. He may not play this way as consistently, but he may be a breakout number 2 for CJ Stroud. So I would say him. Odell Beckham, especially in deeper leagues. Jalen Tolbert in deeper leagues. Wan'Dale Robinson and Darnell Mooney. All right. And at tight end, last but not least, Cade Otton, Jonnu Smith, Luke Musgrave, and Juwan Johnson. Alrighty. Well, if I cannot think of anything else, I think I've given you guys a lot of insight today, a lot to digest. You guys remember to like, rate, and review on Spotify, Facebook, Twitter, or X as they call it, or YouTube, and continue to check us out. And we'd love you guys' feedback. Once again, I'm Bugman J. This is Armchair GMs, brought to you by Blitz and Kick Podcast. Peace.